welcome. You're watching Money, Money, Money. I'm Sumaira Abdi. Since India's independence, 7 pay commissions have been set up on a regular basis to review and to make recommendations on the work and pay structure of all civil and military divisions of the government. But till the 5th pay commission, more often than not, the 50 lakh government staffers were unsatisfied. The 6th pay commission was good. The hope is that the 7th could be even better. But the workings of the pay commission are outside the purview of our show. What we can do, though, is help government staffers and their families manage their money better. So joining in today to actually give us a first-hand account of the issues at hand, we have with us Leena Gupta. Her husband, Aseem Gupta, is the Municipal Commissioner of Thane. We also have Richa Goyal. Her husband, Sandeep Goyal, is the Additional Commissioner of Income Tax. But that's not all. In fact, Leena is a practicing physician and artist as well, and Richa is pursuing research in nanotechnology, I believe, at IIT Powai. Am I correct?
Yeah.
All right, so they have a lot of questions, and Harshvardhan Rungta of Rungta Securities joins in today with a promise to actually be the knight in shining armor with a handy solution to all financial roadblocks. Thank you so much to all of you for being a part of our show, but I have to admit at the onset that this is a subject I don't know very much about. So I'm going to leave it to you ladies. What are the problems that people are actually facing?
My first posting was in a place called Nandurbar. So it was a tribal district. One of the forest officer's wives, and then suddenly her husband had a myocardial arrest. So she didn't know what to do. Her husband had not invested in, she was in the early 30s, and 2 small children. Finally, it was my husband and 2-3 officers who got her a job, and the job was superintendent in a, she was a superintendent of a hostel, of a girls' hostel.
So is this, you think this is a case which is isolated, or are there many cases where you see that people who are in government jobs have not invested very well because, you know, for the moment they're being taken care of?
See, initially what happens is most of the forest, like most of the officers' wives, they come from a modest background. It's we give academics lots of importance. So when they see all these comforts, they think, yes, this is there, this is enough. They're very happy with it, and we have a comfortable house. So no one actually thinks of investing. So and life just goes on, and then suddenly when there is a mishap, so that's when the whole thing falls on your head.
And I take your point, but Richa, what about you? In your experience, have you seen that you know, financial planning has been given a lot of importance, or do you think it's been left for you know, when we retire?
That's a basic fact, I think, the government employee, because everything is being taken care of, right from car, maybe house, everything. I mean, even when you're moving from one city to another, you'll have plenty of people working, helping you out. You're always prepared for the better, and you're never prepared for the worst. So I think that finance just does come at the end of the story.
Yeah, and
so,
you know, time just passes by and you wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
Harsh, you know, Leena and Richa are actually representative of a much larger community, a family at most times, like you said, but you know, this is a community where financial planning has been neglected. So what are the few things that they can at least start off with? What are the first few steps that they can take?
Well, the first cue is, you know, what especially the women should do is, your husbands are working right now. There is some standard of living which you're maintaining because of some kind of income that he's generating. You need to find out, if he was not there, what are the benefits that are going to come from the government. In most cases, if we were to ask upfront, even if I were to ask you for that instance, do you know what the government will give you in case your husband passes away? The monetary payout that they give is in the form of pension. That's a regular payment. Other than that, you have gratuity and all other one-time benefits. So the first thing is, you need to find out what is the pension that I will get, because eventually the wife is the one who's going to run the house. So you need to know very clearly what is it that the government will give you in case your husband is no more. Once you realize and you find that out, you will realize that there is a gap between what needs to be there vis-a-vis what you're going to get. Now, how do you fulfill that gap? Is that you need to either look at term insurance, you need to buy some kind of a life cover, which basically bridges the gap between what the government is going to give you and what you require. One important area which you need to address in some manner or the other is that currently you're living in government quarters. Now, in case your husband not being alive, you would need to move into another house. Now that house, invariably you would initially live in the same city in which you are currently placed, because your children are going to school, so you cannot just move and go into another city altogether. So there are going to be an additional rental expense which you're going to have on yourself. Whenever we speak to government employees, the first thing that comes up, the reply that I get, we've conducted several workshops in different government offices. The first thing that I hear is that we are government employees, government takes care of everything. The moment we start asking them to enumerate and list down what is this everything that you're talking about, then you start realizing the gaps.
Yeah, but one of the key things you mentioned was that they need a term plan. Is there not an insurance policy that the government gives out?
Not that I know of.
So that's the point. You need to, what the government provides, in my understanding, is that one, there are some lump sum payouts given in the form of gratuity, and there are certain accumulations that you have.
Yeah.
Besides that, whatever has been your average salary in the last year of demise or retirement, you get 2/3 of that. So naturally, whatever you're getting today, it's going to reduce by 1/3. So, and plus you have rental burden on yourself. You need to build a house, or you need to move into your own house. So these are the things that you will need to provide for. So that gap can be filled up only by buying a life insurance cover for your husbands.
Okay, so sometimes I guess you just have to take matters into your own hand, but the medical costs are rising, and rising very, very sharply. Do you think you're covered adequately on the medical front?
I think we've been covered under scheme by government called Central Government Health Scheme,
Which is
CGHS.
yes.
So I think it takes care of a lot of things, right from examination to admission of, the payments there. So I think that's what most of us rely
And is
on.
it cashless or is it reimbursement based?
It's
How
reimbursed based. So initially you have to spend. That is actually a big thing, because right now the moment you step into the hospital, they first ask for the security, which is itself a huge thing. But probably, that, and the reimbursement takes a lot of time.
So Harshvardhan, in this case, would it make sense to augment this with a cashless Mediclaim facility, or say a disability insurance in their case?
This brings in a financial planning aspect, that you need to have emergency funds, which can be either deployed for your medical emergencies or any other emergency that you may have.
Okay.
Now the question arises, would you want to go to that particular hospital which is empaneled, or would you want to go and take yourself, because the processes, as you mentioned, it takes its own time for reimbursement of those expenses. So you have a choice where private medical insurance policies are available. You can go and buy those policies for yourself. They're not very expensive either. So you buy an insurance policy.
But how do we know which policies? There's so many policies, so you're just muffled with this, which this one is better, that one is better. So there should be someone guiding you to.
Well, there is enough information available. There are advisors who are available. You can just call a few of them, talk to them, understand what they cover. Most importantly, you need to know if there is an hospital in your vicinity which is giving you cashless treatment. You can get yourself admitted in that hospital and you would not need to pay anything.
Okay, once the reimbursement comes, then things are.
The insurance company will pay the hospital directly for the medical expenses. At least to that sum which has been insured, which has been covered in the policy.
We're not done yet. Harshvardhan has a lot more aces up his sleeve. So what we'll do is take a very quick break, come back in a bit. Still ahead, we'll tell you what are the other things that you could do that will help you manage your money better. Stay with us. Welcome back to Money, Money, Money. We've been discussing and talking about the financial planning for people in government jobs. Leena Gupta and Richa Goyal have been firing away questions, and Harshvardhan Rungta has been keeping up pace with easy to implement advice. And now I'm going to ask you the question which I guess you've been asked very, very often. How often have you guys been transferred, or how many times?
My daughter, she's in the 10th standard right now, and she's changed 11 schools.
Wow.
So you can imagine how many times you've got transferred.
In our case, it's more of stability. It depends upon, in our case, the cities have been distributed as Group A, B, C. So in A group, Group A cities you can stay as long as 14 years. B you can stay as 5, and C you can stay as 3 years. So C cities are very small cities, probably, cities if you may not have heard of, like Khanna and very small towns. So that is the time when you are really, junior, so that is time you spend. But as such, I don't think so. Like I'm here for the second time, but I've heard of people having 5, 6 transfers in 8 years.
Well,
but
you just heard someone having 11 or more possibly.
Oh my God.
But Harshvardhan, I already struggle with collating my addresses for various forms, the various loans that I may have. What about people who are transferred so often? I mean, is there like a quick fix for them?
Well, there is no quick fix, but fortunately we do have systems now moving on to single window KYC. We're talking about across all financial instruments and markets.
Yeah, but that's still a while away. It's not here yet.
Yeah, so this is, I would say, an occupational hazard, wherein you would need to move from one city to the other. And yes, it's a nightmare to collate all your data together, have all your addresses updated. But well, I believe here is again a place wherein the women can take the front row, and they can take the issue on their hand. What they need to do is just make a list of all the investments, the bank accounts that you have, any other place that your addresses have been given. When you move to another city, keep a checklist. Okay, and you need to update your addresses at all places. The least you would want is that you've made an investment, you move to another city, and the officer who occupies your previous house gets to know exactly what you've done all across. So you don't want all your.
I mean, receiving such letters.
So you do not want the other officer to get the list of all your investments and exactly what you've done. Most importantly, if you don't update your communication address, how do you expect a company, whomever you've invested with, to get in touch with you?
Yeah.
So this is one thing which is taken as a second priority, but though it should be the first one.
I don't think so. I've ever made such a list. Thought about that's such an eye opener.
And the person who was occupying your house before you, now you know on national television, please get your address changed.
They probably got it
Which
wrong.
I sent out a warning already. But what about have you planned for retirement? I know you must be a while away from there, but is there any sort of planning that you have underway besides what the government may give you, the pension, etc.? What kind of plans do you have?
See, initially my husband is paranoid, so he is about investments. So very early in life, we had gone in for housing. So even insurance has been covered under that, and so maybe so that the premium also is very good. So it's that way my husband is paranoid.
So what about the other families you interact with? Do you think people are by and large prepared to tackle retirement?
What happens is because of so many transfers, so it's like when we have to travel light, so we don't actually go in for consumable assets. So we always think that okay, we'll buy it in future, but it's like a normal TV, a fridge. So when we think like okay, we'll buy it later, because everything, it just goes on, even a sofa, even all the basic consumable assets I'm talking about.
Much on it. Yeah. Anyways, you have to get transferred.
Yeah,
so
anyway, we have to carry it light.
So that is one major thing. You
that's
always like, you may like this television, but no, it's so expensive, and then probably during transfer you may get it rotten, so forget it, you buy the cheap thing. That is what is always going, because whenever you're thinking of purchasing, you would always think, we have to get transferred. So
what about you, Richa? I mean, from all the interaction that you have, I know you're very active also in ROVA, which is the Revenue Officers Women Association, but in your interaction with people, do you think people are by and large prepared for retirement? Are people investing in their own homes, etc.?
One basic thing is, okay, house is one basic thing that you would like to invest in. You keep looking for options, searching for options. Okay, this is better, that is better, because at the end of the day, you don't know where you would like to settle at the end of the life. Probably today I'm in Bombay, I like the city and I would like to settle here. Tomorrow I move out to Bangalore, probably that looks better. Next, when you get old, you think, okay, all my relatives are focused and settled in Delhi, I may like to say. So, like, even for buying a house, you have to think so many things before buying a basic thing that is called a house.
Well, I would suggest that housing is the first priority. The moment you join a government service, you should target to buy a house. At least initially, you can start using the surplus that you have as a part of your salary, going towards EMI for a housing loan. I would give that more priority, even if it means that beating the logics of investing and asset allocation. Okay, initially you should focus on a house. The question Richa, the concern that she raised was that which city you're going to eventually settle is something that you don't know. I would say treat your house, the investment that you make into a house, okay, as a pure investment. Do not look at it to move into later on. So the idea is you buy with an intention that it is a pure investment.
Okay.
At the time of retirement, if in case you wish to settle in a city which is different from the city in which you bought the house, you can always sell one house and buy the other.
Thank you so much, Leena and Richa, for being a part of our show, and I hope we've been of some help at least to you, Harshvardhan.
Too much.
Thank you. Harshvardhan, do stay on. You know there's more lined up on the show. It's time for us to take another quick break, and we'd actually love to hear from you. The question we're asking you this week is, have you ever faced a problem in getting your details like name change, address, etc. updated on important financial documents? Write to us at money@network18online.com and have your query answered by one of our experts. You can also stand a chance to join us on the sets of Money, Money, Money and be a part of one of our future episodes. So get busy writing, and while you do that, we'll take a break. Still ahead is our viewer call-in segment, Can I Afford It? Welcome back. You're watching Money, Money, Money. Before we start answering our viewers' queries, let me hand it over to Manasvi Gilani, who joins us with Mythbusters.
Today, let's debunk some of your myths associated to credit cards. Many believe that the interest-free period continues if you pay up the minimum due on your card. But that's the biggest myth that needs to be busted. According to Credit Vidya, if the total amount due is not paid, then you pay an interest of about 40% per annum on every paisa that you spend on your credit card. The grace period could range between 18 to 48 days. However, the interest meter is running on the very day the money is spent without any free credit period if any amount is outstanding from the last billing cycle. Secondly, if you think that the passcodes and the identification codes are safe with you and no one can duplicate your card, then you're mistaken. According to bankbazaar.com, a lot of your personal credit card data is on the magnetic strip that's on your card. When your card is swiped, the data is extracted for verification purposes, and it is possible to clone your card using this data and make a duplicate copy of it. Lastly, don't be under the illusion that if you cancel your credit card, all your pending payments will get knocked off. Closing a credit card does not reduce your debt burden at all. The lender won't close your account until you have paid the entire amount due. So it may not be easy to move around with a credit card in today's day and age, but keep those myths in mind if you have a credit card or if you plan to apply for one.
All right, Manasvi, thanks very much for that. Now on to Can I Afford It? If you're looking for a bit of extravagance in your life, well, we're the people to call, and our expert will tell you if you can afford it or not. Joining in first up is Shahid Khan, who calls in from Kanpur. Hi, Shahid. What's your question?
Hi, my name is Shahid Khan. I'm 33 years old and I'm a professional from Kanpur. My income is 94,000 per month, and expenses are around 30,000 per month, and I have a home loan EMI that is 23,000 per month, and I have savings around 5 lakhs, and I'm adequately insured. And my question is, the new year is a few months away. I'm looking to start making bookings now. I'm looking forward spending New Year's Eve at Times Square in New York.
All right, so you want to head to New York. Then, Shahid, how much do you think this is going to cost you, and how are you planning to pay for it?
The 8-day trip should cost about 4 lakhs. I will use my savings to pay for it.
All right, Harshvardhan, what do you think? He's looking to make New Year's arrangement. At least the positive is that he's starting early. But will you give him an approval?
Well, Shahid, you have a very healthy cash flow with a monthly surplus of 40,000. But in any case, I believe you're going to spend on this trip from your savings. So, well, you can most certainly go ahead and take your trip.
All right, Shahid, it appears it's an early New Year for you. Enjoy yourself. Congratulations. Up next, we have Prerna Nath, who calls in from Gurgaon. Hi, Prerna. What's your question?
Hi, I'm Prerna Nath. I'm 27 years old. I'm from Gurgaon. My income is 54,000 per month and my expenses are 25,000 per month. I save 80,000 and my insurance is adequate. Since I started earning, I have never really gifted anything to my family, which includes my parents, grandfather and one elder sister. I would like to surprise them this Diwali with personalized gifts.
Okay, so how much is it going to cost you? How are you going to pay for it?
I I estimate this would cost a total of about 20,000 rupees. I will pay for it from my savings.
Okay, Harshvardhan, what do you think?
Well, Prerna, the kind of expense that you wish to incur cannot be measured in monetary terms. Some gestures are priceless. Well, I would believe that you should go ahead and spend on this, because the happiness that you will see on their face will be much more than what you spend. Well, I'm sincerely otherwise wishing that they don't see this program, because the surprise would otherwise be killed completely. But yes, you can go ahead and surprise them.
All right, Prerna, and happy holidays to you as well. Enjoy yourself. Finally, an email query has been sent to us by 25-year-old Trupti Sharma from Pune. She says she earns about 32,000 rupees a month. Her expenses account for 20,000 rupees. She has already managed to save about a lakh, which is wonderful. But the worrying part is that she does not have any insurance. She now wants to know if she can spend about 12,000 rupees to attend dance classes. Harshvardhan, she says she'll pay for it from her savings.
Well, Sumera, it's very important to understand that if you're earning for yourself, you have all the right to spend on yourself. Well, she's just 25, she may not have any dependents, so she doesn't need insurance. But yes, if that is her desire, she should most certainly pursue it, and she can go ahead.
Yeah, and if you don't dance at 25, when are you going to dance? So Prerna, dance away, have fun, enjoy yourself, but at some point in the future, do consider getting insurance. Harshvardhan, thank you so much for answering our viewers' queries. And viewers, remember, keep writing to us at money@network18online.com. You can also find us on Twitter. Write to CNBC TV 18 News. Use the hashtag money. And remember that you can catch all our previous episodes by logging on to YouTube. Here's where we take your leave. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again next week.